Every day you wake up knowing exactly what you need to do, but somehow you end up doing nothing. You have insane pattern recognition skills, you have insane ideas that can probably make you a millionaire, but you are unable to convert those ideas into action due to your sheer inability to work consistently. You end up overthinking, procrastinating, and wasting months and years of your life without having any actual achievement. And the most haunting part is the realization that you could have been someone. You could have attained insane success in your life. You had immense potential. If only you could have worked consistently. But due to your ADHD symptoms are so worse that you wake up and you are fighting executive dysfunctions every day rather than work. You also have a huge regret of not being like normal people. They can focus and divert their all attention to any work at their will. But you fail to even move out of your day and end up daydreaming regularly. You actually know that you have immense potential, but it is ADHD that is stopping you from becoming your best version. You have already wasted years of your life to action paralysis, and you definitely know that the coming years are gonna be no different if you are not gonna break this loop of inconsistency and inaction. If you have ADHD, this is your life summed up. Hi guys, my name is Subham and I am diagnosed with ADHD, and today in this video I am going to show you how you can exactly break the loop of inaction and finally defeat your executive paralysis. And how finally you can use your ADHD as a superpower and not as a curse to achieve greatness and massive success in your life. But before we begin, we need to first understand what ADHD is and what causes it. What causes our executive dysfunctions that destroys our life in every form, in every way, in every dimension. So when we humans think about doing an action, it can be any action like making a cup of coffee or moving out of your bed. Our brain produces a neurochemical called dopamine, and that initial dopamine is produced by your brain even when we have not even begun doing our action. It is produced at our first thought, and that gives us enough motivation to actually get up and do the action. So you must have heard on the internet that dopamine is a happiness hormone, but it is not a happiness hormone. Actually, it is more like a motivation hormone that motivates us to do a task, and it gives us enough focus and attention so that actually we can execute the task without diverting our mind elsewhere. And normally most humans have some base level dopamine already being produced in their brain that help us to get up and start doing an action. And once someone starts doing an action, our brain starts producing more and more dopamine. It is basically like a snowball effect. But keep in mind that our brain needs to have at least some amount of dopamine in its system even before we have started doing an action, so that it can motivate us to take the first step so that we can start doing that task. And this is where our ADHD brain faces its biggest challenge. So basically our ADHD brains are wired in such a way that our brain is not able to produce enough dopamine. Our baseline level dopamine is actually lower than most humans. And not only that, our dopamine regulatory systems are so skewed that our brain fails to properly regulate the flow of dopamine. So our brain cannot control when to produce more dopamine and when to produce less dopamine. And this is why ADHD people find it so difficult to start a task. We feel a sort of paralysis even when we have thought of doing tasks, and it is because of the low level baseline dopamine in our brain. It is because our brain is not finding that task rewarding enough, because our brain already has such a low level of dopamine. But it only happens on those actions that we do not enjoy doing. But for actions that we do enjoy doing, our brain actually produces more dopamine than required for that action. And that is why we experience hyperfocus on the tasks that we actually enjoy doing. And it is because our brain cannot regulate dopamine properly. So for tasks that requires more dopamine, it doesn't produce more dopamine. But for tasks that do not require more dopamine, because we already enjoy it, it actually produces more dopamine, giving us more focus and more attention and putting us in a state of hyper focus. That's why we end up hyper focusing on songs, music, sports, but we cannot even make a coffee for ourselves. We can be super productive and work whole day for the tasks that we enjoy, but we cannot even begin and initiate the tasks that we do not enjoy. And this is the paradox of ADHD, and it is all because of dopamine misregulation. Our executive paralysis, our daily action paralysis is a direct result of our brain not being able to handle dopamine properly. It is all because of dopamine. It is the single culprit behind our ADHD brain. And it is because of this we ADHD people postpone even the simplest of tasks and just overthink and procrastinate doing it while wasting months and years not doing it. But the scariest part is that if you are not gonna wake up and do something about your dopamine dysregulation, then you are gonna waste your entire life doing nothing and not living it. And at the end, you are only gonna regret on missing out of life, on not reaching your maximum potential, on not talking to like-minded people, or not living the life the way you wanted. That's why you need to wake up now. It is the end game. We are in the end game now. You have already wasted years and years of your life daydreaming. Are you gonna waste your entire life away? Are you not gonna live your life the way you wanted? Are you gonna just simply daydream your life away? Because remember that the regret of inaction is greater than the regret of failure. You need to get up and actually defeat your inaction and be doing anything that comes to your head. You should be able to do anything that comes to your head. I know it is, for an ADHD brain, it is hard to imagine, but be with me, I will show you how you can do it. You must have heard about billionaires, millionaires and musicians and even celebrity sports persons talking about how they have ADHD, and yet despite of that they have managed to achieve so great success and fame in their life. And remember, they have achieved all that despite ADHD, the same ADHD that even you have. How did they manage to create global empires, global music industries, global business empires while having the same executive dysfunctions that you have? What is actually the difference between them and you? Why they go out and just do tasks and be great in life, but you rot in bed and you just daydream? So basically all those people, all those millionaires, billionaires and sports persons who talk about ADHD, they have basically personally developed their own secret ways of regulating their dopamine system at will, and in a way that allows them to focus on tasks that they do not want to do. So yes, regulation of your dopamine system is the only thing that is stopping you from achieving greatness. Imagine if you could hyper focus on things at your will. Imagine if you could hyper focus on things that you do not want to do but you are still doing because you are hyper focusing on it. Imagine if you could actually execute all those ideas and plans that you daydream about. You would be unstoppable. And let me tell you guys, developing such level of productivity and consistency is still possible despite our ADHD symptoms. All you need is ways and method by which you can regulate your dopamine system every day. All you need is this. You need methods and techniques using which you can actually increase your base level dopamine, and that will help you hyper focus on things that you do not want to do. But here's another issue. If you start looking for those methods today and you actually start experimenting on your body from today, then you are gonna waste even years of your life just experimenting with yourself to know what works and what not. You do not have this much time. You have already wasted years of your life doing nothing. You cannot waste the coming years by just experimenting yourself to regulate your ADHD brain. Time is scarce. Time is limited and you need something that works right now. You need instant solution that can make you productive and an action taker right away from today. Not few months later, not few weeks later, not few years later, but from today. You cannot afford to waste any more time. So what's the solution? Well guys, I have done the hardest part for you. So basically for the last few years, I have been actually consistently experimenting with my body and mind to actually find ways that allow me to bypass my executive dysfunction and trigger hyperfocus at will. I have tried numerous methods. I have tried and failed at hundreds of methods trying to trigger my hyperfocus at will, trying to pass on and bypass that executive dysfunction. And through sheer trial and error, I have finally discovered some methods, some actually working methods that allow me to trigger hyperfocus at will. And by using these ADHD coping techniques, I am now able to actually work every day consistently without daydreaming, because whenever I am daydreaming, I just use those methods and come in the moment and just start doing tasks. Yes guys, I finally found a way to permanently be consistent and productive despite ADHD. Now I can trigger my hyperfocus at will. ADHD has finally started to become a superpower for me and not a curse. I can actually complete all my tasks right away without actually daydreaming about it and wasting weeks and months not doing it. And even you can achieve the same level of productivity and consistency using my ADHD coping techniques that I have finally discovered by sheer experimentation on my body and mind. I have compiled all my working and effective ADHD coping techniques in my personal guide that I call it ADHD Solver Guide. You can actually check it out in the description and pinned comment. It contains detailed and visualized step-by-step and practical ways by which you can trigger your hyperfocus at will and at any time on any task that you want. I do not want that you waste your entire life just learning to regulate yourself. If you have ADHD, then you already have immense potential. You already are the top 1% brains of this world. All you need are the right tools, all you need are the right coping methods and the methods to regulate your dopamine system so that you can stop daydreaming and actually execute tasks. Trust me, you are gonna save years and years of your life with this. You're finally gonna be the person who you always wanted to be, who you always could be. This is your only chance to defeat ADHD action paralysis. There is just no other way. There is no other way except this.